Before I begin, how many people here, raise your hand if you're working on a startup right now? Awesome. Raise a hand if you are what would be considered a technical code developer. You write code, you deal with hardware. Okay. Raise your hand if you're the business type person. What are the rest of all of you? Let me try that again. Okay. Raise your hand if you got a technical degree in college. There we go. Okay. Makes more sense. I thought I was talking to the wrong crowd. I apologize. So, you guys sent me some questions. I thought I would tell you a little bit about YC, answer some of your questions, and leave it open for more questions at the end. So, YC, this is our 13th year. We funded about 1,600 startups, about 1,000 of them are alive. We just completed our 25th batch. And we are a pretty simple program. It's an open application. If you get in, we invest $120,000 for 7%. You go through a 3-month kind of accelerator program, and you're part of the YC family for life. So you get access to deals, all of the software platform that we built, advice, office hours, and anything new that we build, regardless of whether you do it for this company or your company fails and you do another company. Some of the secrets inside of YC are that we're actually more of a software company than you might think. So we have a software team. PG was kind of our original software developer. When you join YC, you get access to quite a few resources. We have our own internal code base where you can look up and potentially sell to any other YC alum. We have the ability to sort all those alum. We have an investor database that shows you every investor who's ever invested in a YC company and how much and how to contact them, and their reviews, positive and negative. We have a mini Quora where you can ask questions and browse questions that other founders have asked. I'm trying to think. And there's other stuff. Oh, we're actually just about to get ready to launch a new program, which will be a common application that allows any college student to apply to any active YC company. In effect, one application allows you to apply to 1,000 companies at the same time. So we're also trying to help all of our companies hire. So as all these tools come out, our companies get to use them in addition to the advice. One of the kind of common misperceptions about YC is that the value is in the brand and in the advice. I would say that a lot of people get this calculation wrong. A lot of people think 80% of the value of YC is branded advice, and 20% is the other stuff. It's actually the reverse. The thing that really separates YC is what I think probably separates a lot of the schools you guys go to as well. We put really smart, motivated people in the room, and they're all working really, really hard. And so in effect, when you're in a YC batch, you feel like you have to bring a level of game that you've never had to bring before. And I don't know what that is, because it's not like everyone's competing, they're all different businesses. But being around other people who are working extremely hard gets you to work even harder than you knew you could. And a lot of what YC companies say after YC is that YC established the top speed of their company. They spend the rest of their years trying to get back to as fast as they were during YC. Now, how do we do that? Like, I wish I knew. It's pretty rare, to be honest. But I think that one of the things that makes us special is, like, you don't have to know anyone, and connects aren't going to help you. We actually want to have an open process. We think that the Valley has been biased by people who are looking for credentials or looking for kind of fake signs of intelligence as opposed to just raw intelligence. Fake signs of accomplishment as opposed to have you launched your product, have you talked to your customers. And so part of our application process is very much, we do not care what your resume is, we do not care where you're from, we do not care what market you're going after. We care, can you build your product and can you talk to your users? And that's what kind of makes YC cool. When you think about it, we become this big establishment thing. But most people don't realize that 30% of our founders are from outside of the States. over 50% of our founders are from outside of the Bay Area. And every one of our major founders that you've heard of had never met a VC before doing YC, had never had a rich person who gave them a bunch of money, never had a connect. Literally, if it wasn't for YC, they'd probably be working on the East Coast or working at Google or doing another useless job. Just slip that in. So, I think one of the things that's really important for us is to keep on fostering that outsider culture, the culture that values what you can do over who you know. And in many ways, I think that is something that needs to change about Silicon Valley. An investor told me the number one fear that they have, that are VC, is that all that their partners will do is mine their inbox. Or put another way, all the partners will do is just talk to the companies who can somehow figure out a network to them. And I think one of the cool things that PG came up with when he came up with YC is that your ability to network to a dude, most likely on Sample Road, is in no way correlated with your ability to build $1 billion company. And that filter makes their lives easier because you can walk in their front door, they don't have to go find you. But it doesn't mean that you're good at anything. It just means that you figure out how to network to them. So we think the Valley shouldn't be about that. It shouldn't be about can you network to someone. You know, this isn't like a big kind of MBA situation. You're not trying to get a job at an investment bank. Your most important relationship shouldn't be with your investors, it should be with your customers. And your most important ability shouldn't be to network or attend conferences, it should be to build and iterate a product. So we think that in some ways the Valley has been selecting, I mean, we all know the successes, and the successes actually stand out for this reason. But what they don't tell you is that so much money in the Valley is wasted. Companies that simply go to zero because they were over-indexed on networking and under-indexed on actual skill and talent. So our goal at YC is to change that. And what's cool about doing YC is that if you do make it through the application process and the interview process, strangely, suddenly you become an insider. Suddenly you become a cool kid. Suddenly it's as if you were best friends with all the dudes on Stanhill Road. Overnight. Which just goes to show you how not valuable it is, right? The fact that like we can stick a YC stamp on you and suddenly you're like cool, like clearly that's nothing. But what we say is that if we can have an open process, then we think the right people are getting access to the money, to the resources, as opposed to the folks with connects. I think the second thing I want to talk about, we're a little concerned at how cool it is to do a startup. One of the things you might not know is that one of our biggest spikes ever in applications was after the Facebook movie came out. And what's interesting to us is that oftentimes you have to be really crazy to do a startup. Oftentimes you have to be really weird. Oftentimes you have to be, in some ways, like stupidly, what's the right word? You have to be able to ignore reality a little bit. There are very few careers that smart people go after that have as low a success rate as being a successful startup company. If you guys are trying to create companies, in effect, you're trying to get into the NBA. And you wouldn't think it was rational to expect that you can get into the NBA. So it kind of takes someone who's slightly irrational to make that jump. And one of the things that we're concerned about is the marketing around startups makes them seem more mainstream, more successful than they really are. So take that to heart. You would be surprised at the percentage of YC companies who make it through our process, who raise money on demo day, and whose companies simply die. Like, that is the world we live in. And so you need to be comfortable with that outcome. You need to kind of be excited by that possibility. This is not a one-to-one replacement for working at Google or Facebook. You can work at Google and Facebook and expect, if you do a good job, you'll never get fired. In fact, you'll get raises and promotions. You can do a great job at your startup, and it will die. I see it daily at YC. So it's something to really consider. The reason why it's so important is because it takes a long time to succeed. And to kind of put this in real numbers, so I was co-founder of a company named Justin TV. It became Twitch TV and sold to Amazon for $1 billion. Our company had an 8-year run before being acquired. From year 0 to year 6, we went from a $0 valuation to a $24 million valuation. From year 0 to year 6, we almost ran out of money and died 5 times. We had a number of founder disputes. We had a number of employees leave. We had a number of failed acquisition attempts. From year 6 to year 8, we went from $24 million valuation to $1 billion valuation. If you're not willing to stick in through all of the years where you look like an idiot, you can't ever get to the end zone. And in reality, it takes a very long time to create a successful company. We measure decades, not years. So I'm saying this because I'm trying to a little bit talk you out. Because if I can talk you out of it on stage in 5 minutes, then this is not your game. If I can't, if that seems exciting, if you're drawn to wanting to accomplish one of the hardest tasks you can accomplish in your career, and you're comfortable with the risk, then you should be thinking about it. Awesome. Now we get to some of your guys' questions. So, how has innovation in Silicon Valley changed in the last 10 years? I think that there are 2 significant changes that should be noted. The first is that it's a lot easier to build a product than it was 10 years ago. It's been about 10 years since we did YC for Justin TV. It took us 4.5 months to build our prototype. We could rebuild Justin TV in about a week and a half to 2 weeks today. That's a huge change. That also means that the amount of capital it takes to launch a product has gone down significantly. One of the reasons why people think it's harder to get into YC today than it used to be is because doing a startup is cheaper now. And getting access to customers is easier. So you should be further ahead than we were when we were applying 10 years ago. And just to make that really tight, when we went to add credit card payments to our website, it took 3 months, and we had to put $180,000 of collateral down. 3 months to do the biz dev deal and the technical integrations. You can go on Stripe today and start collecting credit card payments in 5 minutes. That's the difference in time. The second thing is angel investors. An interesting trend has happened over the last 10 years that's a little bit sophisticated, but I want to get into it. The traditional investors who invest in VC funds, LPs, have started to significantly invest in early stage funds. So when we used to talk about angel investors, we used to talk about early employees at Facebook or Google who are now rich. Nowadays, in addition to that group, we're talking about a whole slew of early stage funds. And it's confusing because you don't really know whether it's a VC fund or a VC fund. When I say VC fund, I mean a fund that writes $5 to $10 million checks. But there are a lot of VC funds out there that write $500,000 to $2 million checks. And that's really changed the world for a startup founder. A Series A used to be something that you raised to start building your product. Nowadays, a Series A looks like something that we called a Series B 10 years ago. You have a validated product with customers and a business model that's working, and you use your Series A to scale. So the result of this is that founders are a bit confused. And a lot of founders march down Sand Hill Road and think that the first stop for funding is a VC who writes a $5 million check. That's not the game anymore. And unfortunately, anyone giving you advice who the last time they played the game was 10 years ago, they just haven't seen this. It's shocking to me as well. So the phenomenon that we see at YC that's really strange is that we'll see companies that'll raise from angels and these early stage funds. Over the course of a couple years, they can raise up to $10 million from this group of people. When they go out to raise their Series A, they can have double-digit revenues. They can be raising at above $50 million valuations. It's a very different model than it was 10 years ago. So what we really tell our founders is be careful on who you're pitching. Fundraising takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. And if you're pitching the wrong people, you're going to get a lot of meetings and no results. So understand that this change means that there's a whole new slew of money that's sitting not on Sand Hill Road, and that's where most companies are raising their initial financing today. And the rest of the traditional ecosystem is effectively trying to catch up with that. At YC, we don't particularly care where you raise money from, but it's a lot easier to raise money from thousands of angels and early stage funds than tens of later stage funds. How does the innovation ecosystem in the Valley change different from other places in the world? It's really tricky. We travel to a lot of places to talk to founders, and I think that what I would say is that talented founders are spread all over the world. And I would say as well, founders who are outside of the Bay Area have an advantage. And the reason why is that they see problems that don't necessarily exist here. And they live problems that don't necessarily exist here. But I would argue that there are very few places that has fertile enough soil to actually build a company. Outside of China, I think Silicon Valley may be one of the few or only ones. And so something to really think about. Your experience, your customers, your understanding of the problem is probably advantageous for it to come from outside of here. But talent disproportionately is here. Money is disproportionately here. And experience is disproportionately here. And so a lot of the companies that we see at YC get grown as seedlings all over the world and then get transplanted here. And we think that that model works really well. Is Silicon Valley too US-centric? Yeah, it definitely is. One of the fun things that we get to do at YC is just experiment with saying, screw that, we don't give a shit. So we just start funding companies who are focusing on outside of US markets and say, these are extremely talented teams that are growing really fast. When we put those teams in front of a room of 500, 600 investors, they raise money. And so we believe that billion-dollar companies are going to be built everywhere in terms of where their customer bases are and where their problems are. And we believe that there are amazing markets all around the world. Has the rest of the Valley caught up yet? It's coming along. It's coming along. What are some of the startups and or breakthroughs you're really excited about? So I'm going to kind of split this into two answers. So my first answer is a lot of times people ask me, what industries does YC interested in? What industries do I think a billion-dollar company can be built in? I kind of think about this as like an MBA question. And I'm a business guy, I didn't get an MBA, but like, you know, I think of it as like, I'm trying to figure out what problem to solve based on trying to predict what will happen 10 years in the future with little to no data. That's really hard. I'd much rather talk to a founder who's trying to solve a problem that they've experienced or someone they know has experienced and to roll the dice on what 10 years in the future is going to bring. And I think what most people don't realize is that founders like the people here shape 10 years in the future, and it's not the reverse. We have a founder who decided you should be able to fly commercial faster than you can now. And so he decided, I'm going to build the next version of Concorde. There's no reason why someone should say that's a good idea, right? The Concorde just died. There's no reason why someone should say that's like a fundable idea out here. You need tons of money before you can put a single plane, even on a runway, let alone get it up in the air. But he just said, screw that, I'm gonna do it anyways. And now he gets to shape what 10 years from now looks like. And what's so funny is all the people who are trying to analyze the future, they now say, oh, well, because now it's being done. I bet we're gonna have this in 10 years. He shaped how they analyze the future just by starting a company. So you guys should think about it that way, not the opposite. Not how do I figure out what's gonna be big. This is not a word problem like that. One of the things that the YC we're really proud of is that we don't want to have any thesis about what kind of company we should create. All we want to do is say, what are the smartest people in the world passionate about? Let's give them money to go out there and get it done. And if you're not passionate about something, maybe reconsider doing a startup right now. On the flip side, some of the things I'm excited about are existing YC companies that I don't think people are talking about enough. So everyone talks about YC and they say Airbnb and Dropbox, Airbnb and Dropbox, over and over and over again. And it makes sense because it takes a long time. It takes 10 years to build a huge company, and YC's been around for 13 years, so it makes sense. But here are some of the other companies you should be thinking about just on your radar. Coinbase looks like a crazy company to fund in YC. And now, how many of you have Coinbase accounts? Raise your hand. Yeah. The rest of you will have them soon. Back in the day when they started Coinbase, they just gave away Bitcoins for free to sign up. Didn't you wish you signed up back then? Gusto is a payroll and insurance company that if you start a company, you're going to use because payroll sucks. And health insurance sucks as well. They were one of the companies that really understood the value of doing YC as a B2B company. There are 1,000 customers sitting right there who want to take your email. Doing an amazing job and also doing it from a technology perspective first. Instacart literally delivers your groceries. And what's interesting is now that Amazon is in this game, if you are a grocery store, you really have two choices, die or work with Instacart. So we'll see how that goes. Stripe powers payments for tons of startups around the world. And they now actually allow startups to be even incorporated in create bank accounts. Literally a company that started that has changed how almost every YC company afterwards that charges for money does business. Mixpanel basically revolutionized how analytics was done in the valley. A lot of people didn't do events-based analytics before Mixpanel came out. They used Google Analytics, which by the way sucks. And so they really kind of created this sea change around, do I have the data I need to run A/B tests? Do I have the data I need to do retention? Without those folks, many of the products within YC would never work. Reddit, I'm sure you all know. For some reason, I'm really close friends with Steve, the CEO, and for some reason, he said to me, the strange thing about Reddit is no matter what we do, it keeps on growing. When we're working on it, it grows. When we weren't working on it, it grows. When it was at Condé Nast, it grew. When it was not at Condé Nast, it grew. And what's funny is you look at Steve and he's like, if he's standing in front of a very important group of people who will talk about all the reasons, right? All of the trends and so on and so forth. In reality, he figured out something that people wanted, and when you build something people want, it can have horrible design that never changes, and more people will want it. They're doing amazing. And the last four are DoorDash, Docker, Clever, and Segment. These are companies you should know about as well. So when you think about YC, think about Airbnb and Dropbox, these are the next 10 companies. These are the next 10 companies that are going to be billion-dollar companies or already billion-dollar companies. They're going to have even more impact than Dropbox ever will be. All right, I'm going to stop it there, and I'm going to take a couple of questions. Raise your hand up, find out.
Yes, and I have a mic here. Hi, my name is Shane. Thank you for speaking to me today. I have a question for you. What do you think about students founding startups? Do you think that you're successful in it while being a student and pursuing startup?
So, my co-founder at Justin TV is a guy named Kyle Vogt, who dropped out of MIT at 19 to become our co-founder and then created a little company called Cruise. And so I think that it's entirely possible for students to create companies. I do think that if you're serious about creating a company, there becomes a moment very quickly where you need to choose the company over school. And I think that most schools make it very easy to take a leave of absence and come back. And I'm looking for founders who think of that as like perfect, as opposed to founders who are like, this is a project. YC does the fun projects. Awesome. Right there.
Thank you. Michael, what's your go-to person if you did investment advice on Internet of Things and energy point of view, like battery, EV? Could you share their names?
So I have two answers to this question. One, oftentimes when judging YC applications, I'm not trying to judge the hard tech. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll assume that their core thesis and their core technology works. And then I'll read the application and try to find evidence that maybe it doesn't. The other advantage that I have is I can call any of the 1,000 YC companies and ask them for advice. And so most of the time, if it's something that I think is important that I really need to know more about, I'll reach out to a YC alone. Great.
Okay, so hi, my name is Ning, and I'm actually from UCLA. So as you might know, for the last 3 years, this idea, we're in the idea of Silicon Beach, and with the IPO of Snapchat, some people said the startup trend might go away. So what do you think about this trend? And do you think there will be like more entertainment-based startups?
So what do I think about Silicon Beach? I would love there to be more Silicon Valleys in America and around the world. And so I hope Silicon Beach works. But as a startup founder, you're already taking risk that your startup isn't going to work. Why would you also take risk that your ecosystem is not going to work? So yeah. I might get in trouble for saying.
So, once you're starting something, what's your first step? Is it building the tech or is it finding the customer and helping you work?
So, when you're starting a company, what's the first step? I actually think the first step is the group of potential co-founders. So I think that ideas and problems get talked about and discussed with the group of potential co-founders, and that's kind of the starting point. And if you don't have that group of people around you who have skills that complement you, that you really like, that you can see working with, I think that that's kind of the number one prerequisite. Once you have that group, I think that's the group. And it's funny because I see this in the Valley all the time now amongst like my friends and people I see starting companies. When you have the conversations about customers, idea, problem you're trying to solve with that group of people, someone can come up with something good, and that group of people will say, all right, let's start a company. And bam, you've got a team. And so I think, especially for students, kind of one of the saddest stories I've ever heard was from a classmate of my wife's, an MBA classmate. And what she said was she wanted to create a company. I said, that's great. Do you write code? She said, no. I said, great. Well, you need to recruit a technical co-founder. And she's like, well, there's a problem. I don't know anyone who writes code. And she went to school at Duke and Berkeley. And I said, well, you've never met anyone, even when you were like a freshman in college? She said it was never cool or it never seemed helpful or like it would help my career to get to know those people. Doesn't that hurt? I'm a business guy. I had 3 technical co-founders. We didn't need more of me in the company. So that group of people is so important. And as a student, it's one of the rare situations where you can actually cultivate that group of people. Once you leave and go into the working world, you tend to be siloed and segmented away. So I think that's by far the most important thing to excel. Right there.
So the question is, when I read a book of Lean Startup, I feel like if I'm a software developer, I can iterate a product and it feels so good. But when I read a 0 to 1, it's kind of, I want to let myself in that story. I want to build the technology breakthrough or something. Do you think they are really different, and what is the advice for us to think about that two books?
I think they're both right. I think that Lean Startup is about process, and 0 to 1 is about thought. And I think both are needed. Like, I think you need to know something about your space that's controversial, that other people don't believe, or that the existing businesses in the space just don't believe or understand. And sometimes the process of doing that is just the process of living your life. Sometimes it's doing research, working, building some unique technology. Something has to be there. On the flip side, like, iterating is king. Because most of your initial work is understanding the problem. Your solution is always going to suck, right? You never can build a good solution unless you're interacting directly with customers and iterating the solution. So I think they're both right. And I think it's funny because different investors like to emphasize different kind of ones, but like, this is the shitty thing about doing startup. You gotta do a lot of things right. Like, you gotta have a lot of things lined up. A lot of founders ask me a version of this question, and the way it goes is it okay if my revenue is increasing a lot, but I'm burning more cash every month? So I have negative margins. And I'm like, why would that be okay? No, it's the opposite of okay. You have to, or is it okay that I can have a lot of new users coming every month and my retention's bad? No. Like, you want to be in the NBA, you have to be able to dribble and shoot. There's no like, oh, I just shoot and I can't even walk around the court. You're not getting the job. So you got to be doing a lot of things. All right, I'll take one more, right there.
Thank you, Mike, for coming. My question. So, have you ever worked with cybersecurity companies and how are they doing? What do you think about the market needs? I feel like it's pretty hard for cybersecurity companies to actually get consumers to care about what they're doing.
So we find a lot of cyber companies, and a number of them come from Israel. I think doing security is really hard because it takes talent to do security, but to sell security is also a completely different and important talent. And like, great founders can do both. But we've seen great security companies come from all kinds of places. I know that if I were building a security company, I'd want to be here because this is where probably your first 100 customers are going to be. And that's, kind of important. Okay, so to close, I want to say something that I always say to large crowds. My email address is michael@ycombinator.com. Now, some people ask me to spell Michael, and I'm like, well, you should be able to figure that out. Some people ask me to spell Y Combinator, and I say, well, that's a founder IQ test if you can't spell that. Bigger problem. I answer every email that I get. Every single email I answer. And I usually tell crowds like this, and people look at me like I'm crazy. And then, like, only 5 people email me. And so, you make my job easy. But I believe in having an open process. Like, I believe that you shouldn't have to get a warm introduction to me. I believe you shouldn't have to scout the internet to find my email address. And like, I believe that if you're gonna send me a serious email, that you deserve a serious answer. So if you wanna reach out, email me. And you'd be surprised. I don't like have my finger on the scale in terms of who gets into YC or not. But the same type of mentality that gets people to hear this and drop me an email is the kind of mentality that gets people into YC. It's that, hey, I'm looking for someone who wants to go after the outsiders, and someone who I actually believe when they say that they're going to listen. So with that, good luck. I hope I see a lot of you applying to YC over the next couple of years. I wish I could stay, but I'm actually in the middle of grading applications right now, and I have to grade 500 in the next week and a half. So I'm going to run, but I promise you, if you email me, I will reply. Thank you guys so much.